So, I've had questions a lot lately about, and again, I don't want to necessarily knock people who are into pro wrestling, right? Because I do think it's an art form. I do think it's an athletic art form, and I want everybody to feel welcomed here. But I want to kind of address something that, I see it a lot in BGEs, I see it in PWP and a lot of those big companies that, and WWE guys, when you're trying to, like, people are like, well, how do you defend this attack? And like an over-the-knee backbreaker, right? Or a surfboard or something like that. A lot of these pro techniques are really awkward to get into. And so how do you defend them? Well, you don't get in them. That's the way you defend them. And what I usually see is like the pro wrestler will be there and they're acting like, oh, I'm too tired, or I'm in too much pain right now to defend this. And first of all, if that's the case, you need to stop wrestling. But second of all, if a technique requires somebody to be non-responsive and non-defensive, then it's probably really easy to defend, right? And I thought about this a lot for the surfboard, right? So if somebody's here and they've got their feet on my back and they're holding me like this, again, this is not an easy grip, especially the wrist grip to hold on to. So I can start working on like fist hands, and somebody's like squeezing with their whole hand if it feels tight in my hand, but not like this. I can probably slip out of that pretty easily. But, the thing is here is I need to clear this foot on my back, right? The one that's holding me into this position where they're trying to hyperextend me. But I've got two free limbs here, right, to do that. So what do I need to do? Well, I might start to crunch up a little bit here just to kind of get this a little bit engaged, right? And then I'm going to dig my heel into the mat, right? And I'm going to get into kind of this position. I know it looks really, really awkward here, but here, even if they're kind of pulling on that, it might be easy for me at this point to clear that foot. And so now they don't have any control here, and I can start to potentially roll this down, and I can start to sit up on them and treat this sort of as guard pass, right? So from here, right? So I can come up, under, and come around. They do still have that arm, right? But is it going to do them much good, right? Depending on what you're going to do to them. So I feel like, that kind of surfboard is probably really, really easy for them to address. There's also the one where like we're kind of in this position, right? And so we need to start to pick apart how, they're pushing on my shoulders here. I'm extended that way, so I don't really think I can actually get down this way to start to defend that. But I suppose, I need to unwind my arms is going to be the key thing. So I might start to bring back, I've got that push here, and I can push back into him. And now I'm being put in a more neutral position. His legs are probably going to slide up on me at this point, right? So even if I'm here, if I can get my fists to the mat, that's going to help. And then I get here, right? And so from here, it's probably actually really, really easy to kind of break that down. So going back into what we were talking about on the last video, which should have been a new video anyways, when we're talking about that submission where, right, I have somebody's leg and I'm going to basically weave it through mine, which, by the way, this kind of hand exchange is going to be very difficult for you to do, okay? That's what's required of this one. And then to do it again, to pick up this one, if somebody really doesn't want you to do that, it's not going to happen, right? So I can step in, down, and up. And actually also feeding that under there, boom, right, to get into that position. Again, that's a lot of stuff for somebody to not be defending to get into that submission position. And so there's a lot of opportunity there for somebody to be active about that, right? So somebody's, holding on to the leg and they're trying to step around this way, right? I know if they're going for that they're going to need to get my foot over the top of this guy. So a potential defense for this is just lock up on your own leg. Then this thing just doesn't ever happen here, right? If it does get here, I'm in a different position here, but I know that they need to keep this leg up so I can post my foot in the mat and squeeze it in. And now they can't get me into that position, right? They're not on the ground yet, so I hide this away, right? So I'm in a defensive position for this, and I'm probably actually in a pretty good position to actually start to sweep them or something along those lines, right? I'd have to actually think about this and actually work with this with a partner, but you know, there's opportunity there, okay? An over the knee back breaker again. You know, a lot of times people are going to be here and then they're going to be pulled up to that position. They're usually not going to be pulled up from the leg side. So from that, don't let them, right? If they are trying to lift you over the top, you know, scooch down, right? I'm digging my heels, I'm getting in there. And so for me, when it comes to, you know, trying to pick apart, okay, how do you defend pro wrestling techniques? A lot of them really rely on somebody not trying to defend. So defend them. It becomes my answer there. You know, pro wrestling is fake. And so, you know, when you think about it in those terms, when you understand that, you know, there's a certain level of compliance required to make pro wrestling work, then the answers to how to defend pro wrestling techniques becomes really apparent really quickly, okay? And that's not always the case, right? There are some things that they do that are quite legitimate, but you know, when we talk about, okay, I'm here and their legs are wrapped around me and they've got me in a straight body scissor here, right? They don't have any scorpion crunch because that's going to be a different story here, but they're squeezing all that. What is this? This is guard, right? So you're going to defend this the same way that you defend a guard break, right? If they're doing a cross body scissor, and I know I'm like totally knocking on my favorite holds here, but you know, how do you defend this? Well, punch the leg down, get that leg grip apart, because again, it's not, a body scissor is not about your adductors, right? It's about your ability to leverage off your closed ankles here and straighten your legs. So if you can break that structure on the ankle side, then you can start to get the legs apart. And you know, this is actually, you know, my arm, I know it's weaker but and all that, but we don't have that coordination to be able to relock up with this extended. So, you know, straight head scissors, again, there's not, you know, the reason why we do arm in when we do a head scissor in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or triangle choke or whatnot is not so much about trying to get the pressure from that arm, it's so that it can get control over the head. And so, you know, if I can't get that other arm in, you know, I have to put my arm in so I can get a lock on their jaw, basically, close up, and then I can get that pressure in to get that no arm triangle choke. But likewise, you know, if I've got a straight head scissor here, you know, this is a good defense. Starting to stack me, starting to put me on my shoulders and folding me in half. It's not going to be comfortable for me. It's going to be hard for them to defend. Now, you know, if I'm on my side like this, right, I'm going to take my elbow and I'm going to do a circle with it. That's going to help start to get me up. I might put my hand in here to just kind of relieve some of that pressure so it's not directly on my carotids, right? I want to relieve a little bit of that. And so from here, step forward, technical rise, basically, right? Stack, and then we're right back to what I was just talking about, which is where we start to treat it as a double under or a single under guard pass, okay? Same thing can be done with the triangle choke, by the way. Even with your arm in, depending on how well locked up they are, I can grab the shoulder, stack them, and usually be able to turn the corner to break that triangle choke off. So, you know, just start to look at the techniques that you're like, well, how do I defend this? And actually look about, okay, how are they controlling you? How are they holding you down? How are they submitting you? How does that submission work? And then how can you start to pick it apart? And also, probably the most importantly, is what did they have to do to set up that submission? And this is true in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's true in real submission wrestling, it's true in freestyle, folk style, Greco-Roman, right? Is what does somebody have to do in order to get what they want, right? And once you understand that, And once you can start to address that, then you can start to actually defend and prevent them from getting the hold on in the first place. Because again, if they've got your arm across your body in a triangle choke, and they're really well locked up here, and they've got my posture broken down, that's not the time to defend a triangle choke, right? The fact of the matter is, you probably have 5 to 10 seconds, somewhere in that ballpark, to get out of there. And when you get out, you're going to be disoriented and a little bit because they're already squeezing, they're already closing off your arteries, you're losing blood flow to your brain, and so you're more likely to pass out at that point. If you can build up your posture, okay, they haven't got my arm across here, but if I can look up, right, and I can keep my posture up, right, I do that kind of thing. Maybe I am able to get here, push on here, I can pop out, right? Whenever I can start to break apart that submission, whenever I can start to do that, that's going to be the time to do it, not when the submission's already there, right? Once somebody's got my arm all the way extended in an arm bar, I'm not going to be able to defend that arm bar, right? If I feel like, I'm in this position, they move their thigh up here and they're underneath here, I know that arm bar's coming. They're separating my elbow from my body, they're about to lace through here. Maybe I block that lacing, right? I'm keeping this protected, but I'm not going to let them lace their arm through, right? I might be covering here, right? To try to prevent that. Keep in mind with this covering, my elbow's higher up off my body, right? So, usually it's going to be up here by the wrist, but again, we can break that down pretty easily. So what is the next thing? Well, they're going to need hip penetration, right? So they got this off my body. I'm going to get my elbow down to the ground, right? And I'm going to be defending this. There's no arm bar here. Once he loses elbow penetration, hip penetration under that elbow, under my shoulder, right, he's not going to have that arm bar. So pick it apart. Think about what makes it work. Think about what they need to do to make it work. And then stop at that. Okay? I've gone on too long again. Have fun with this, guys. Let me know if you have questions. Put it in the comments. Talk about it in the Telegram chat. Talk about it in the Facebook group. And if you're into pro wrestling and you found what I said kind of offensive, let me know. That's fine. I'm trying to be kind of realistic about it here, but if there's nuance there that I'm missing, please call me out on it, because again, I don't want to knock your sport. I just want to start answering the questions of how do we start to defend these things. That high full Nelson, it's been a long time since I've been into that, and I do think it's probably a very difficult position to get out of. I would feel like getting my head off to one side of their chest, right? Depending on whether or not they have a leg grip, because that's going to change things. So I don't want them to put their legs around my waist in a full Nelson like that. If they cross their ankles in front, of course I'm going to ankle lock them. But if they don't, I need to start, I'm here in this position. They've got that full Nelson here. If they lock through the ankles, straight ankle lock, right? If they don't, I can use a foot, push this one off, and get my hips to the outside, right? And so I'm in this position. If I can, I'm gonna get my head off their body, right? And so from here, they're kind of leveraging off my head. I have to think about this a little bit more, because again, I feel like this is a very tricky problem to get to, right? Or get out of. But once you get off that, and they're still having you in this, right? Even if you kind of start to change your angle here, right? They're going to have to follow that. And if I'm blocking them with this leg, I might start to be able to get this one out, right? But be very careful, guys, because your arms are stuck up here like this, right? If they can get your wrists together and then they kind of straighten out here, you've got a double arm bar there. So you have to be watching out for that. So I think that a full Nelson might be something that I have to give more credit to, but I'll look at that and I will play around with it and see if I can come up with a really great answer for that, because there is one, right? Part of my answer that I already have to it is that in order for somebody to get a full Nelson, they're probably going to be in the back mount position, right? They could be in side mount here, right? And they have that hook underneath here, and so they've already got that half Nelson here, but I have to start to pull it over to this side, and I have to be able to lace underneath here. So they're, you know, if I'm in full back mount, I have to get under both arms here. And if somebody's really tight about this, right, they're really protecting their neck, they're really protecting their arms, that's going to be a hard thing to do, especially if they can keep on their side like this, right? Because now you have to deal with the mat as well as getting under my arm, which is being protected right now. So you might be able to get that half Nelson, but it's going to be particularly difficult to get that full Nelson, right? You know, other things that you could potentially do to defend this, and I want to be careful about saying this, because, you know, if they do get this arm free and they start putting their arm behind your neck here, and you don't start protecting your neck here, right? They're going to come on this side, right? Because this is their free arm. So if you're not protecting your neck here, you know, I'd have to be here. They're going to put you into a rear naked choke, and they can totally do it with their arm up here like this, right? So there are things about that. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'll do a whole video on just full Nelsons at some point in time, because I think there's a lot there to look at. And right now I'm just vamping off the top of my head, and that can go on forever, so let's not do that right now. Thank you guys. Have a good afternoon.